My name is Parivash Rohani, and I'm originally from Iran. So I left Iran in 1979 when revolution happened in Iran. My house was burned down because of my religious belief, which I belong to the Baha'i community. So at that point, actually people asked my parents about me, and my parents were scared for my safety, so I left Iran to India and ultimately to US. My community is persecuted in Iran because, of course, in like any other religion, like in Christianity, the Christians are believe that Jesus is the last prophet. The Jewish people believe that Moses is the last one. So in Iran, the same thing. The Muslim in Iran believe that, of course, Muhammad, His Holiness Muhammad, is the last prophet, and our prophet has come after Islam. So for that reason, we are being persecuted, and we are considered infidel, unclean, untouchable, because our faith is less than 200 years old. And the persecution still goes on, and not only in Iran, in Yemen, in many countries like Egypt, most Middle Eastern countries, the Baha'is are not having freedom.
What is the Baha'is' faith?
Yes, I can just summarize Baha'i faith in a few words. So the tenet of the Baha'i faith is oneness of God, oneness of religion, and oneness of humanity. So as Baha'is, we believe that there is only one God. We might call it differently. We might call it Allah, Jehovah, Krishna, or so many names. But in reality, that unknowable essence which we call God is one. And then oneness of humanity, we truly believe that every human being on the face of this planet are one. Nobody is better than other because they are white or they are black or they are yellow. We all are one. And one religion, there is a concept in Baha'i faith, we call it progressive religion, progressive revelation, which means that God has promised that He never leaves humanity alone, and time to time He would send a teacher or prophet to guide humanity. So when we come to the spiritual part of religion, we call it changeless faith of God, which means the spiritual foundation is the same. Like no one religion has come to spread disunity, encourage people to kill each other. Most religions have come to unite and teach us as humanity to love each other. The only reason that these different religions would come at different point of life is because of social law and economical law that is always changing, ever changing. So really this is, in short, and to summarize Baha'i faith, is just these three onenesses that are core of the belief of the Baha'i faith. And we have other things to support that, because the Baha'i faith has come for universal unity and peace. So there are principles in Baha'i faith to support that universal peace and unity, which is international language, international measurement, and it is equality of men and women. Science and religion has to go hand in hand, compulsory education, universal government. There are a lot of other really teaching, social teaching, to support that universality of humanity.
Are those universal components, can those universal components be achievable?
This principle to be achievable, we believe that it is, because Baha'u'llah talks about that he has come for mature human being. He tells us the humanity has come to that stage of maturity. And maturity of humanity only would be evident by unity of the whole global community. That's the apex of maturity of humanity. And we believe it is achievable, and we believe in organic change. So we have to transform hearts of humanity, that they really truly have to come to believe that we are one. Because we think that all the problem that exists globally is because we haven't realized that oneness of humanity. If we realize we are one, then the rest become much easier, because if I believe my neighbor has the same value, is as noble as my kids are, then I would not want my neighbor to suffer. So we feel that we are really band-aiding the symptom, but really if we diagnose the problem, it would be not for us that we have not realized that oneness of humanity.
So have you tried to live that faith of yours with your neighbors here? I mean around here on this street, did you have any moment to share that faith with them?
Yes, so we have cross path with our neighbors, we are friends with our neighbor who is on the left, and in the back actually we have family who have come from Rwanda. They are actually our neighbor, yes. And we have talked to them, we have kind of exchange of ideas. And I remember one time my husband was out, and they were out, they were talking, and then the next day we get a phone call from him because it was his sister his aunt who passed away in Rwanda, and they invited us to the memorial, and we went. And while we were there sharing meal and sharing stories, really, I said, this is that oneness that we are talking about, because they could very well said, our neighbor don't know anything about our culture, we don't even know them that well, why should we invite them to something that is so personal, and we were so honored that they really consider us, although we don't know each other that well because they moved less than a year ago to our neighborhood, but to just realize that truly we have a lot to share and learn from each other.
Yeah, I think the commonalities, the blood we have, it is lead, no matter who we are.
Yeah.
And the breath we are breathing, it's the same. So back to your religion, you had to live because those beliefs, they have put you into conflict with the Islam. Can I say that like that?
Yeah, so I look at what happened to me. I had to leave Iran because of my religious belief, and lot of us were expelled from university because of our religious belief. My father lost his pension because of our religious belief. But I just wanted to clarify that those kind of fanaticism exist in all the religion. It is not just Islam in Iran. I'm sure that there are that kind of fanaticism in other religion, exists in other religion as well. So I'm not contributing what happened to me to the religious belief of those people, because unfortunately this kind of atrocity happened because of the fanatical ideology. And definitely, yes, that happened because a group of fanatical people believed that we are infidel and unclean, and they burned our home. And actually when they burned our home, our house was not the only one. There were 500 homes in city of Shiraz, that it is in the history that happened to us, and it was solely because we were Baha'is.
That is
1979.
Yes, 1979.
Yeah, so now I'm trying to move from 79 up to now.
Yes.
How is the Baha'i community in Iran?
Yes. So nothing has changed for the Baha'i community in Iran. Like still we hear Baha'is being arrested, put in prison. My own sister-in-law, my brother's wife, about, I think it was 5-6 years ago, she was arrested because they had a meeting at their home and they were sitting and saying prayer. So they broke into their home, they took every electronic thing that they had, they confiscated everything they had, and they put her in solitary confinement for a month. And then after the month they released her because they didn't have really any evidences. They just, a woman who is raising 2 kids, doing nothing wrong, was arrested. So they released her and they were trying to build a file for her. You know, and one of the reasons that they arrested her was the fact that, you know, the Baha'i community from the beginning was persecuted in Iran. Even our Prophet and his family were actually banished from Iran by the government of Iran at the time. And he was banished to Iraq, to Turkey, and ultimately to Ottoman Empire, and then ultimately it was Israel. So my sister-in-law had a picture of the shrine of our Prophet hanging on their wall. So one of the things that they got her for was because of that picture, which is in Israel. They said that she's a spy of Israel. So one of the reasons that nowadays they arrest many Baha'is is as simple as that. If they come to your home and see that picture is on your wall, they say, oh, okay, this is a reason they are spies of Israel, or spies of England, or we are spies of every country that you can imagine on the face of the earth. So no, and actually the Baha'is from 79, most of the students were expelled from university. All the dean and professor and teachers were expelled from university. So really Baha'i community was shocked. They didn't know what is happening. And because the education is compulsory in Baha'i faith, like if the family don't have means to send their kid to a school, the Baha'i community have to support, because education is the key to the freedom, really, in a sense. And the government of Iran knew that if they don't allow the Baha'i youth to go to university, that's a very hard blow to our community. Because, you know, they burned our home, they expelled us from work, they cut the pension. The Baha'i community was not shaken. But then when they expel the student and the student cannot continue the education, that was very hard for Baha'i community. So then in 1987, all of those teachers, they got together and they said, we have to establish an underground university because we cannot let our kids not have education. So they initiated the underground university that happened at people's home. And then initially they had a very limited variety of courses, but then they expanded. Now even they have a PhD program. And few years actually into the program, the government confiscated a lot of their computers and lab and put some of the instructor and a student in prison. And Baha'i community realized that most of the teachers who were arrested were the one who was teaching philosophy, sociology, psychology. So they thought we cannot lose teacher either. So now the university, the underground university, is an online university. So the professors all across the globe who are not Baha'is by the way, not all of them are Baha'is. We have instructors in Iran who are not Baha'is, they are Muslim, and they are teaching in this university long distance. So it's really amazing phenomenon.
Yeah, again, that's true.
Now, based on that that history that is happening back in the community, so what are you doing here now to help back the community? What's going on today?
Yeah. So, I have always tried to advocate for different campaigns that the Baha'i community has at the international level. So, for a longest time, I was advocating for education is not a crime, which was related to the underground university. So, there are few documentaries, like one is called To Light a Candle, and one is Education is Not a Crime, actually was done by Amnesty International. So I used to travel and screen the documentary. But this year, the international Baha'i community has a campaign called hashtag, or Story is One. And it is really to honor the 40th anniversary of 10 Baha'i women who in 18 June of 1983 were hanged in prison. So they were from age 17 to 57. And I knew them all because they are from the same community that I lived. And I remember, when we left Iran, we were always listening to news because we thought, oh, the situation get better and we go back. So I remember I got married in 12th June of 1983. And we were in our honeymoon and listening to radio when the radio reporter announced that there were 10 women, Baha'i women, who were hanged in Shiraz. And of course I got really curious as they were announcing their name. I couldn't believe it, like they announced the first name and I screamed and I said to my husband, oh my God, I know her. And then they announced the second and the third, all the names, and I thought, what is this? Like, I could not really believe it because I knew them. I knew they were all in university, highly educated. One of them 17, that actually her father was executed 3 months before she was. And then among these 10 women, there were mother and daughter that they were hanged. So it really was like I lived most of my adult life with the survival guilt because I thought I can't do anything. Why I'm here and they were all hanged in prison. And because it happened to our community, there was not much publicity. Because they said they deserve it, they are spies of Israel, they are this and that, so they deserve it. So the whole community, it seems, really try not to what happened become public and universal. And I think the reason that now the radio and TV station out of Iran are covering it constantly is because of the uprising that happened in September in Iran, and I'm sure you're aware with the killing of Mahsa Amini, who was a young Kurdish girl who went to Tehran for a vacation, and she didn't have proper hijab. She did have hijab. It was not proper according to the, the morality police. So she was actually arrested, and then ultimately she died of that situation, and the many other people who died. I think this incident that happened this past year evoked some awareness in Iranian people, because the same labeling that for all these years they have been given to us as Baha'is, that we are spies, we are this, we are that, we are against the government. Exactly the same kind of labeling is happening this past year. Like, Mahsa was not a Baha'i, she was a Kurdish girl. She was Sunni girl, she was from Kurdistan, Kurdish girl. The other girls who were killed, they were all Muslim. So I think that brought this awareness in the Iranian community that is it possible that these Baha'is who were killed and hanged in prison, they also were wrongfully killed? And I think that brought their story to light. Not because they wanted to show their story, it's just because they thought, oh my God, this is the same thing that is happening to their community 40 years ago and nobody said anything, and now it's happening to us. You know, so I feel that this story alone shows how we should not be a bystander. Anywhere we are, we just definitely have to be an upstander and make sure that any injustice, we talk about it, because if we don't, it would happen to our own community, to our own family.
So let me ask you this question like this. What is your plan, let's say in 1 month? What are you going to do tomorrow, after tomorrow about this? Do you have any immediate plans that you're working on?
Yeah, so really every night that I go to bed and every morning I wake up, I'm thinking what to do. And it is really this hashtag or a story is one, which is a universal campaign, and I feel it's so appropriate. Then when you have a universal campaign, you have to have a universal language, and that art is a universal language. So, you know, through this, hopefully we honor women, not only, you know, many times I talk about this story one, and I say really these 10 Baha'i women, their story is not unique. I mean, 10 Iranian women were hanged in prison, but if you look throughout the history, many incidents like that has happened to women. You know, women who fight, I don't know, in Rwanda, in Afghanistan, or, you know, the African American and the Native American. So it is not a unique story, but that's why really hashtag story is one, makes sense that it really relates to the fact that our story, not Baha'i story, not Iranian story, our story as humanity is one. And this is just a tool, you know, to honor this woman is a tool to bring issues of justice and equality up and talk about it in our community. Excuse to have a reason to talk about these issues, and hopefully we will build a future that these stories would not be repeated.
Yeah, I think you're right. When you make a roundup across the globe, you will find the same cases, you know, even more than 200 people abducted by militia groups, you know, 100 girls whose school is stormed by armed people and they are taken in the forest, you know, and you don't know where they are. It's a lot across the globe. So what do you want the Iranian government to do vis-a-vis the community of Baha'i?
You know, usually as the Baha'i community, we try, when the Baha'is are arrested or persecuted, we try to actually approach the different officials here in Maine. You know, like if there are senator or House of Representatives, we usually try to ask them to become a mediator between us and the government of Iran. So we are usually really, as the Baha'i community, we are not participating in partisan politics because we believe that brings a lot of disunity. So we don't participate in that sense, but we usually, if we want to ask for justice by writing letter, you know, requesting the senators and House of Representatives, because every year in a Senate and House of Representatives, there are actually resolutions connected to the human rights in Iran, and there is always a number, you know, they all have a number, and one of the resolution usually is about the human right of the Baha'is in Iran. And we usually every year go and ask support for those resolutions. So that's how we are trying to influence the government to be more civil to the not only Baha'i community, because we are not the only minority who suffers in Iran. There are Kurdish community, there are Jewish community, Armenian community, even poets, the reporters, the photographers, all of those people who are fighting for freedom right now are dealing with a lot of hardship. Like the prison in Iran is a university, because most people who are in prison are cream of the crop of Iranian people. They are all highly educated. They are the one who want to make a change, and because the government doesn't like it, they are put in prison. So Baha'is, are not the only one who are really being discriminated against in Iran, but we are more, because at least with other minority group, they allow them to have a lawyer. They, like for example, with other minority religion, they are little bit more respectful because their name has been mentioned in their holy holy book. So superficially they tolerate them much better than they deal with the Baha'is in Iran, because Baha'i faith is a taboo to the point that sometimes I say the white American thing, just because there are Iranian who are not Baha'is and they are Muslim and they are in US or in Maine, it means that they are very open-minded and they support the issues of the Baha'is. I just want to clarify that just because there is an Iranian who is out of Iran, it doesn't make it that they are open-minded, because the Baha'i faith is a taboo. Like it is ingrained in them that this Baha'i faith is, they are spies of Israel, they are infidel, they are not they are second-class citizens, they are unclean, they are subhuman. So even educated Iranian who are out of Iran, some of them still have that in their mind. Like I have been really advocating for human rights of Baha'is for as long as I have been in Maine. Not even one Muslim Iranian have supported me. Not only supported me, even if they are in conferences or giving talk about the situation of the Iranian, they would never even mention that the Baha'is are also suffering in Iran. So I just want to clarify that this Baha'i faith is a taboo to the point, not only in Iran, but outside of Iran.
So you have to be cautious even outside of Iran.
Exactly. I had a situation happen a few years ago to me that I was supposed to screen one of these documentaries in Bangor area. Somebody called me and said, we want to warn you that there is an Iranian here that's very fanatical, and we don't know if you want to come and show the documentary. And I said, no, I'm not coming to show the documentary, because my purpose of showing the documentary is education and creating dialogue and unity. If this documentary wants to cause problems within the community, I'm not coming.
But you were in America.
And we are in America, that's what I said. So when that happened to me, I was so heartbroken, and I said to my husband, really, my story in a sense is so sad that I escaped the persecution to be in a country that I'm able to talk about my belief and what happened to me, but you very quickly realize that that's not the case. You flee for freedom, and then within that community that you think you're free, you can be restricted from your own community,
Yeah,
It's very sad that the same history that you were fleeing is following you where you go.
Yes.
So again, the voice that will be coming from America, can it change anything in Iran, since the countries are enemies already?
Yeah, so I went to Iran in 2015. My mother fell and broke her back, and I went to Iran. And I have every year I participated in going and seeing the senator and House of Representatives. So when I went to Iran, I met with the gentleman, a Baha'i gentleman who was in prison for 15 years. So when he went to prison, his daughter was 5 years old. And when he came out of prison, his daughter was 20 years old. So when I went to meet him, I asked him, I said, many times I go and meet with the senators and House of Representatives about making sure they defend the human right in Iran, specifically human right of the Baha'is in Iran. And I said, they always ask me if I know that it is helpful. And I said, I always tell them it is helpful, but in my mind, I don't know if it is, because we don't hear. So the interesting thing he said that made me, when I came back, I said, I do anything in my power to still advocate for human rights. Was he said, he was in prison for 15 years. So the security guard, all of the security guards who were protecting, him, they came to know him. And he was an engineer. He did a lot of good things in prison. So they really liked him. Like the security guard liked him. And he said when they would come and take people out of prison to execute, they just come and say such and such a person should get ready. Then you knew that you're not going to see them. So he said 3 days before he was supposed to be executed, one of the security guard told him that he heard that he's going to be executed in 3 days. And he said to me, the prisoner have, 2 minutes, I don't know how many minutes, but they could make a personal phone call. So he said as soon as the security guard left, he made a phone call to his wife and said to his wife that I'm supposed to be executed, I think in 3 days or something. And he said his wife connected with human rights, representative in England. And then very quickly, his actually sentence to be executed was changed to remain in prison. So he was not free at the time, but he remained in prison. So he said to me, please make sure that these senators and House of Representatives know that the resolution that they are supporting is working. So when I came back, actually I went back and I saw Senator King and Susan Collins and Shelley Pingree, but I didn't see at the time somebody else was for House of Representatives. I couldn't see him. But when I was sharing the story and showing the picture of this family, I remember all of them told me that they were so thankful that I came back and I shared that story, because they said when they support this human rights issue, they support it because they think it is the right thing to do. But they said nobody have ever come to them and said, look at this family. These are the family that, you supported the resolution and they are freed. So definitely the international outcry definitely is helpful, because no government wants to look bad globally. So sometimes, unfortunately, it doesn't work for good, but we have to do our part thinking that whatever we do can make a difference. Otherwise, we would just be paralyzed. We need to do everything in our power,
Yeah, I want to thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me the time.